Hello and welcome to the Sharp 600, brought to you by Covers.com and presented by FanDuel Sportsbook. I'm Jason Logan. Welcome to Wildcard Weekend, and our wilderness guide through Wildcard Weekend is none other than Todd Furman, pro bettor, former odds maker. Todd, welcome to the playoffs. I got to ask you, when it comes to the second season, what do bettors need to know? What's the tweaks they need to make? What are the differences between betting postseason games and playoff games?
Public perception will play an even bigger role in the games that we'll see now until we head down to New Orleans. Recency bias, going to be the number one term that we'll probably use over and over again. People become enamored with one single solitary data point. They seem to disregard everything else they've seen from a full body of work. And no greater illustration already, J-Lo, than what we've seen in some of the games that we're going to get to in terms of the way the totals have all been on the move since being posted on Sunday night once we knew the matchups.
Yeah, I always find the postseason takes a more kind of public push. Of course, the Super Bowl being the most public bet game, where that casual influence is almost as great or greater than the opinion of the sharp guys. Are we seeing that shift more in the postseason because of the widespread growth of sports betting? Are we seeing a bigger public influence than compared to some of the lines or say markets that are kind of kept in check or set by the sharper plays?
It definitely takes a bigger role because all of these games from here on out are in standalone time slots. So people want to try and have action in each and every one of these games. It's not the same as when we're breaking down, an early slate on a Sunday where there's 8 or 9 games and the marquee matchups are going to garner a lot more attention. So what you'll see is people trying to get involved in exotics. We have 2 college football playoff games on Thursday and Friday night that'll lead into some of the liability created. And for those folks that know this is their last hurrah, that may only bet football throughout the course of the calendar year, they want to have money in play in one capacity or another, and oftentimes they gravitate towards sides or totals. And the one thing I'll joke with you now, how many people are going to have a 3-team money line parlay that ties the Philadelphia Eagles into the Buffalo Bills and the Baltimore Ravens? I can tell you without speaking to sportsbooks just yet, one of those underdogs winning outright would be exactly what the doctor ordered.
Yeah, and it was a pretty chalky regular season as well, too. And the playoffs have been known for better underdog results as well. Before we start the clock on Wildcard Weekend, we ask that take a couple seconds and go and rate and review the podcast on whatever platform it is you use to listen to us. If you watch us on YouTube, like and subscribe. You want to make sure that you are subscribing to the Covers YouTube channel because we have some great stuff coming up here for the playoffs for this winter. And, of course, we're going to have boots on the ground in the Big Easy for Super Bowl 59, myself and a couple other guys, Dell, our producer, going down. So stay tuned for that. We're going to be right there for Media Week at Super Bowl in New Orleans. It's going to be an awesome time, and we're going to bring you along for the ride. All right, let's start the clock on the NFL playoffs. 600 seconds for the Wildcard Weekend. All right, Todd, let's just go. All of the games for Wildcard Weekend. Chargers at Houston. What do you see? What do you like?
So we got about 7 seconds to cover each of these games. You try and cram in as many nuggets as you can. This game is the Houston Texans time slot. When they play on Wildcard Weekend, they kick things off on Saturday in the afternoon. And I think this is a Texans team that you have major concerns about where they're going to go to generate offense. But on the flip side, this is a Chargers defense that I think is a little bit of a paper tiger. Yes, they led the league in scoring, but go through that schedule, J-Lo. Some real concerns. 2 coaches that want to run the football that are relatively conservative. I'm bummed I missed the best of the number going under 44. Can't tangle at 42.5. Lean ever so slightly towards the home underdog plus the 3.
I did go Chargers below the field goal, and I did go under 43.5. Like you said, Houston's offense pretty bad. Los Angeles, good team on the road, 7-2 ATS as a visitor. Better coach, better QB, better team. Let's go Steelers-Ravens. Todd, I saw the spread open 8.5. I knew it was a no man's land. It was going to move based on early opinion. That opinion has moved it up to 10, and that's all I can stand. I can't stand no more. I bet Pittsburgh plus 10. Am I a fool for trusting the Steelers with 10 points?
This was a number we saw a couple weeks ago where the Ravens opened below a touchdown. Number did get up to a touchdown on kickoff of that Saturday game, but they had Zay Flowers then. The Steelers didn't have George Pickens, and now the Steelers offense getting healthier. The Ravens lose a weapon, and the number has ballooned. So I think you're on the right side with a live underdog here, especially with a total that continues to get bet down. I may or may not have been part of that under move that came in at 46. I think George Pickens over 3.5 catches at a modest minus $1.30. Probably the best player prop that I can find on this game.
All right. AFC North is different as well, too. Let's go Broncos at Bills. Bills as high as 9 now. How much is the narrative of QBs struggling in their first postseason start? How much is that baked into this line? How much is it driving the movement toward the Bills?
I think it's definitely baked in here some, but we're not asking Bo Nix to go on the road in Western New York and win this game outright just to keep the game competitive. And I think the coaches are awash. We know Sean Payton is going to be ultra aggressive with a young quarterback. They may be able to run the football. And while I don't love Denver's defense, I think Buffalo's defense has taken on a little bit more water down the stretch. This is the one game of the 6 that I probably have the most tepid opinion on, so I'm deferring to you to get us to the window.
All right. I will have a play on this game later on. Packers at Eagles, Dell. It's a big one. Let's see the big smile. Smile. You're in a good spot here. I bet the under early on in this one based on, two good defenses, two teams that like to run the football. Todd, I'm really interested in taking a position with the Eagles to win the Super Bowl at plus 700.
And I can't argue with you. Nick Sirianni, the only thing in my opinion that could hold this team back, because from 1 to 53, this roster is extremely talented. I like Kellen Moore a lot more than most. I think Vic Fangio will scheme things up defensively to provide a thorn in the side of the Detroit Lions or whoever else they may encounter. And this is a Packers team right now that I just can't get a great read on. I thought the number was a little bit short, and assuming Jalen Hurts will go, I'm more than happy to try and lay that number with a lean on Philadelphia here, winning this game by a touchdown or more.
Yeah, I think if anyone can exploit defensive issues for the Detroit Lions up front, it's the Eagles. So hopefully they get that shot. This is going to be the wild one of Wild Card Weekend. It's Commanders at Bucks, tall total. I bet Commanders plus 3 earlier in the week. I like the way that Jaden Daniels matches up with this Tampa defense. They want to bring blitz, that's fine. He's been good against the blitz. They want to bring pressure, he can burn them with his legs. They want to run zone. Daniels, exceptional against zone. I look at Baker Mayfield, and he just hasn't looked right down the home stretch. 7 interceptions in his last 5 games, missing some easy throws as well. I think we're going to see pressure from Dan Quinn's defense. I could see him throwing into a secondary that has been much, much more improved here in the second half of the season. What do you like here for Commanders and Bucks?
Look, I think you highlighted a lot of the key points in this game, and I think the key absence for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers offensively has been Cade Otton. That's really changed the dynamic of what this offense has looked like. Bucky Irving looks the part of a true RB1, but Washington will most likely sell out and stop the run. The matchup that I want to focus on is that Tampa Bay offense, specifically with Mike Evans matched up against one of his old nemesis in Marshawn Lattimore. Now, Lattimore, not the same player at this point in his career that he was early on with the Saints, but you go back and dig into some of those numbers. Evans was bottled up time and time again. I think Lattimore, if he travels with Evans, can blanket Tampa's top offensive weapon. And when I look at an over-under at 75.5 receiving yards, this feels like a big, big ask. I like Mike Evans under that total and agree with you. I think the dog is live in this spot. Just kicking myself for not grabbing the 3.5.
Yeah, just there's some injuries to that secondary for Tampa Bay. A lot of key starters, 2 starting safeties, questionable for this one as well too. And then finally, Vikings at Rams. This one is going to be interesting because you say recency bias, and a lot of people saw a really bad outing from Sam Darnold and Minnesota, and I think that's driven the line movement. What do you like in this one?
Yeah, you wonder if Sam Darnold beginning to see ghosts again in this particular spot. This was a game before we saw Sunday Night Football that I had circled the Rams, was hoping the number opened at plus 3. Lo and behold, I may find myself looking to try and make a case to tease the Vikings up if I can get them to 7.5. But I think both of these defenses are being sold a little bit short. I'll have more on that particular angle, but I'm not willing to back the Rams at the worst market number that we've seen, even if they did beat the Vikings earlier this season on a short week.
Well, you may not be, but I did, and I am. I took the Rams plus 1.5. It did move down. I put them in my underdogs column, and of course I'm going to bet it. But there's a few things that I like about this matchup. One, it is the McVay over O'Connell. It's the Jedi Master versus Padawan matchup. He got the best of him in Week 8. I still think he gets the best of him here. Minnesota also playing back-to-back road games, 3rd road game in 4 weeks for them. It's a tough haul. The Vikings' red zone woes, we saw that on full display against the Lions, and that's been an issue for them a lot of the year, especially when they head on the road. And the Rams defense, not fantastic, but they do stiff enough inside the red zone, one of the better red zone defenses out there. And the Rams, this is the good thing about the Rams. They find another gear in the 4th quarter. If you look at their offense and their defensive metrics and you just tighten the splits to the 4th quarter, they're among the better 4th quarter teams out there. So I think if the Vikings let them hang around, they're going to get bit in the butt here. So I could see the Rams, Rams winning outright, Rams plus 1.5 in a tight one. Minnesota loves to play these tight games. And then Sam Darnold making his first postseason start. So does that play into this as well, too?
I think that's one thing that's overlooked. People see Sam Darnold as this grizzled veteran who's bounced around, but never played on a stage this large. You hope he took the game against the Lions as a learning experience But J-Lo, you mentioned that underdog column. What were those ATS numbers for dogs in the wild card weekend? I want to say you said 24-12 the last 36 in this round.
Yeah,
Pretty incredible numbers there.
Yeah, 24-12. So a very, very good return. And again, like you said, recency bias of those things playing into that line. Touchdown anytime props for wild card weekend. Todd, I think we're picking in the same game here. Why not? There's going to be plenty of points. Commanders and Tampa Bay. You go ahead. What do you like?
We are sharing a brain, not necessarily on the player, but the same side of the ball. I'm going to go to the receiving room for Washington, and no, it's not making a case for the ageless wonder that is Zach Ertz or their top option in Terry McLaurin. It's Olamide Zaccheaus, who has developed a rapport with Jaden Daniels over the last 4 or 5 weeks of the season. You mentioned earlier in the show how banged up this Bucs backfield is, and I think Zaccheaus can be the guy to stretch the field. Look for Jaden Daniels to take a couple of shots. He could have had 2 touchdowns against the Cowboys and wasn't able to do so.
I'm going to look for Jaden Daniels to keep one. I mean, he had 2 touchdowns against this Tampa Bay team in week 1, but this is like I said, a defense that matches up well for them. They want to bring blitz. They want to flush him out of the pocket. That's fine. He'll burn you with his legs. And we've seen him have his best running days against aggressive pass rushes. Dallas, Tampa Bay, Cleveland. Daniels right now at plus 185 is one of his better prices to score a touchdown. Even over the last 10 games, I think he breaks one out. I think he finds the end zone, runs one in. A big, big day for him. All right, 2-minute drill time. Best bets for wild card weekend. I'll get started. Todd, I'm going with Houston over 1.5 field goals. It's minus 125. We talked about the Texans' struggles. Really struggle inside the red zone. 5 for 15 inside the red zone their last 5 games. They run into an LA defense that does the little things right. Number 1 red zone defense. Number 5 in third down conversions. I see a lot of Texans drives stalling out. They're going to have to settle for 3 instead of 6. I like them to kick 2 or more field goals at home. Nice clean air inside NRG Stadium. No wind to worry about. 2 field goals from them.
I can't argue with that. I think the game sees points at a premium, so every field goal will carry the utmost importance. I'm going to go to the game on Saturday night between the Ravens and Steelers. Well, familiarity breeds contempt, and I'm going to go under the total in the first half. Mentioned a little bit earlier, the full game total has come down, so I think the value's been zapped from that number, but I think these 2 teams could come out and start a little bit slower. This Steelers offense has been borderline inept with their opening drive, especially in the first half. The Ravens down Zay Flowers, and we saw how conservative they could be in these postseason games. Look for them to run early, run often, get to the half under 22.5.
This bet has been a favorite of mine all season, but it's Josh Allen over 1.5 passing touchdowns. It's even money out there right now. His propensity to take off near the end zone is what keeps this price from going way up, but he's connected for at least 2 scores in 4 of his last 5 showings before being parked in week 18. Denver runs a lot of man. Allen, very, very good against man. And also, too, some great pass-catching options that aren't wide receivers. Running back second, those 2 tight ends. It's going to make the Broncos linebackers work. He's going to hit for 2 touchdowns or more.
And I'm going to go under the total in the final game of Wild Card Weekend between the Rams and Vikings. I know people look back to the first game between these 2 teams, a 30-20 Rams win. But you dig into some of the numbers. The Rams, from an offensive standpoint, score less than 30% of their first half offensive drives. The Vikings, one of the stingiest defenses early. I think Brian Flores will scheme things up, keep Matthew Stafford and company at bay, and look for both these teams to establish a ground game early to take some pressure off their stop units. Under the total for me at 48.
All right, that horn means that we have burned through the 600 seconds here for Wild Card Weekend, and that means that I got to give out some big thanks. Big thanks to Dell behind the curtain, a big thanks to Todd for joining me each and every week. FanDuel Sportsbook, big thank you to you, and of course, thanks for tuning in and joining us each and every single week. A reminder, whether you're listening to us or watching us, do all those things. Rate, review, like, subscribe. Let us know what you're betting on Wild Card Weekend. Todd, before we turn it loose here on the playoffs, any last-minute advice?
So we're going to offer a PSA like we often do, and I know some of the listeners go, man, this is way too preachy. Not what I bargained for when you're telling me not to unload my bankroll on every single remaining NFL game. But with so many games still to go, or so few depending on how you look at it, make sure you're trying to balance some of your action. If you feel a lot stronger about a certain opinion and you want to have action side or total player props, that you're not going to the window just kind of flat betting. Identify where you think the best opportunities are coming into the weekend. Avoid chasing, and we will get you to the window more often than not from now until the middle of February.
Super efficient market here now that we're only down to 6 games and then so forth throughout the playoffs. So these are tough lines to beat. We will be back next Wednesday with the playoffs marching into the divisional round. Until then, best of luck with your wildcard bets. Hey NFL fans, you can make every moment more this season with a big return on FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. So when you get a hunch in the middle of a game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. You'll get started with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place your first $5 bet. Never waste a hunch at FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. Must be 21 plus and present in select states or 18 plus and present in D.C. First online real money wager, only $5 first deposit required. Bonus issued as non-withdrawable bonus bets will expire 7 days after receipt. Restrictions apply. See terms at sportsbook.fanduel.com. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER or visit fanduel.com/RG. Call 1-888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org/chat in Connecticut or visit mdgamblinghelp.org in Maryland. Hope is here. Visit gamblinghelplinema.org or call 800-327-5050 for 24/7 support in Massachusetts, or call 1-877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY in New York.